Morning, everyone, and welcome to the session focused on developing equity through highly effective teachers, a look at North Carolina A&T's teacher education, past, present, and future. Our panel consists of three members from North Carolina A&T University, Dr. Kimberly Irwin.
Good morning.
Associate Professor of the Department of Educator Preparation. Her research interests are African American males at the elementary level with a literacy focus and teacher leader preparation to meet the needs of diverse students. The next panelist is Dr. Nicole Smith, Associate Professor of Reading. Her research interests focus on improving the reading abilities of K-12 students. And our third panelist is Dr. Kalisha Petty, Biology Teacher Education Coordinator. Her research interests focus on equity and science education for students of color.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for coming to our session. We were a little concerned. There were a lot of tables and a lot of chairs, but you all have filled it up. So we're really excited about sharing what we're doing at A&T with you today. So the title of our talk is Developing Equity through Effective Teachers, Past, Present, and Future of NCA&T's Teacher Education. So we're going to begin with a meditation quote. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. So we want to begin by talking about implicit bias. The nature of implicit bias, the first point we want to bring up is that all people possess implicit bias, or rather unknown or often unintentional beliefs, feelings, or perspectives. Additionally, implicit bias occurs frequently in contexts where there are time constraints, an abundance of information to present, and multitasking is necessary. And thirdly, K-12 schools, the judicial system, and financial institutions are common contexts where implicit bias occurs and unfortunately negatively impacts, more often than not, people of color. So we're going to begin with an interactive quiz. So we're going to get you involved in the next part of the presentation. So we want you to get your folders. You have folders, and Dr. Irwin will give you some instructions.
Yes, please take a moment if you haven't gotten a folder to open your folder. And there is a gold sheet in there that we would like for you to use. We also have in that gold folder for you our premier magazine for our College of Education, the Aggie Educator, for you to have, as well as our strategic plan for the College of Education. So at your leisure time, if you're interested, please feel free to look at the other items. So our knowledge assessment based on Black men in the United States, okay? So what we want you to do is, of course, use the gold sheet provided. Up at the top, there'll be 5 questions. We're going to read through each of the following 5 multiple choice questions. Beside the appropriate number, you're going to write the alphabet response, and please answer every question even if you must guess. You are not allowed to talk, Google, or use any supporting documents or resources to answer these questions, okay? All right, so our first question. Oh, great, come on in. Welcome, welcome, okay? Question 1, in 2013, the U.S. Bureau of Justice statistics reported that approximately 745,000 Black men, regardless of age, were incarcerated. Approximately 526,000 in federal prison and approximately 219 in jails. During the same time period, approximately how many Black men, regardless of age, were enrolled in college? So you have A, less than 100,000, B, approximately 275,000, C, approximately 500,000, D, approximately 850,000, and E, approximately 1.5 million. Please take your time and answer question 1. give you a few seconds. Okay, question 2. In 2013, the United States Department of Justice reported approximately 164,000 black men between the ages of 18 and 24 were incarcerated. During the same time period, approximately how many black men between the ages of 18 and 24 were enrolled in college? Less than 100,000? Approximately 275,000? Approximately 500,000? Approximately 750,000? Approximately 1.25 million.
Okay, question 3. According to the most recent data on college enrollment from the National Center for Education Statistics, Asian American males comprised of 9.7% of college enrollment, white males comprised of 5.8% of college enrollment, and Hispanic males comprised 4.7% of college enrollment. What was the percentage for black males enrolled in college at this time? 3.6%, 4.5%, 5.4%, 6.3%, or 10.6%? And question 4, according to the U.S. Census Bureau Central Population Survey, what percentage of black men had a high school diploma or GED? A, approximately 10%, B, approximately 20%, C, approximately 50%, D, approximately 80%, or E, approximately 95%.
And then question 5, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, American Community Survey 2014, there are approximately 13 million black men aged 15 and over in the United States. Of what number, approximately how many earn more than $50,000 per year? Approximately 250,000, approximately 50,000, 500,000, I apologize, approximately 750,000, approximately 1 million, and E, approximately 2 million.
Okay, so now let's review our responses, okay? So we're going to go back to question 1, and I'm going to read the question again, and I'm going to give the answers, and once I give the answer, I'm going to ask you if you chose A to please stand up, so forth and so on, okay? And it's fine, we're all family here, okay? We're all learning together, okay? So again, question 1. In 2013, the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics reported that approximately 745,000 black men, regardless of age, were incarcerated. Approximately 526,000 in federal prison and approximately 219,000 in jails. During the same time period, approximately how many black men, regardless of age, were enrolled in college, okay? So it's all right. Don't change your answers now. We're okay. If you selected A, less than 100,000, please stand. Okay, and remain standing. Thank you. If you chose B, approximately 275,000, please stand. Wonderful. C, approximately 500,000. Okay. For just a moment, this is D, right. If you chose D, approximately 850,000, please stand. Okay, so those of you that are sitting chose E. All right, look around, click the clicker, and let's see what the answer is. Take a look around. We have 2 people that are still sitting, okay? Doesn't mean anything's wrong with that. It's what you're going off of your knowledge, okay? And so that's what we're talking about, all right? So let's continue on. Just take a look, okay? Have a seat, okay? Question 2. In 2013, the U.S. Department of Justice reported approximately 164,000 black men between the ages of 18 and 24 were incarcerated. During the same time period, approximately how many black men between the ages of 18 and 24 were enrolled in college? No, I'm an elementary teacher at heart, so I'll get you up and down. Forgive me. Okay, if you selected A, less than 100,000, please stand. Very good. If you chose B, approximately 275,000, please stand. If you chose C, approximately 500,000, please stand. Click my clicker for me. The answer is actually D, if you'll raise your hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Who chose E? Anyone chose? We had one that chose E. Okay, all right. So the answer is actually the 750,000. Okay. All right, we're moving on to the next question.
So looking at question 3, according to the most recent data on college enrollment from the National Center of Education Statistics, Asian American males comprised of 9.7% of college enrollment, white males comprised of 5.8% college enrollment, and Hispanic males comprised of 4.7%. What was the percentage of black males enrolled at college at this time? If you chose A, please rise, 3.6%.
Okay.
B, 4.5%. C, 5.4%. Okay, so raise your hand if you chose D. Is it one, I think? Anyone choose D? All right. The correct answer is 6.3%. So,
Okay.
question 4, according to the United States Census Bureau current population survey, I apologize, what percentage of black men had a high school diploma or GED? If you chose A, please rise. B, 20%, please rise. Okay. C, approximately 50%.
All right, we get good now.
Who chose D? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. And
Woohoo,
what
there
about
we
E?
go.
Okay, 1. Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. So approximately 80% have a high school diploma or GED.
Awesome.
All right, last and final question. So this is our last time getting you up and down. We promise we won't do this the entire hour, or else it would be an aerobic workout and not a presentation. So according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 2014, there are approximately 13 million black men aged 15 and over in the United States. Of that number, approximately how many earn more than $50,000 per year? If you chose A, please stand, 250,000. If you chose B, please stand, 500,000. If you chose C, please stand, 750,000. If you chose D, please stand, 1 million. And if you're seated, congratulations, you got this one correct as well.
Okay.
Thank you all for your participation. So let's pause for just a second. Let's get a little bit of feedback on that exercise. What are your thoughts as you were answering each question and as the answers were being revealed? Any thoughts that you had? Any surprises?
I'm glad to know that I was wrong.
Right. Right,
Okay.
right. And as an African American woman with a son, I have 2 sons. I was raised in a house with 4 brothers. 3 of the 4 went to college, all high school graduates. My father graduated college. I even got some questions wrong.
Yeah.
So if you were thinking, ooh, I should have gotten these right, basically this is about the narrative that we've been given. We've been given a narrative, and that's what we're here to talk about. Unless we address those implicit biases that we all possess, unless we address them and identify them, we cannot change them. So we have to do that for ourselves individually, but what about younger generations, those teachers that we're preparing to go into the classroom? What are their implicit biases? And that's what we want to talk about. There was another hand up. Did you have your hand up?
It was going on with what you just said.
Right, right.
And please understand, we want you to make sure it's just not about black males. It's about any person of color that is marginalized, okay? So we happen to have this because, of course, our dean, his area of focus are on African American males. We have several, my focus, but they're elementary, but we have several, but we just don't look at that as the only group, okay? We're looking at students of color, okay?
You had a comment as well?
I was just saying, I understand that was a bit of a study also on implicit bias because before the actual question, there was a narrative sentence before it was the specific study that was unrelated to the question that was being asked, and that really skewed the way, or I tried not to let it skew me, but it does have an impact because it presents a perception before we answer the question. And I almost wanted to take the quiz without the perception that was presented before me. And so I wonder, without that prompting, and of course that's the nature of our societies, we have a certain perception that we see, and I understand that very well. And so that's a very interesting question.
Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the common representation, because of the dominant story that we're told, what we see in the media, what we see online, the pictures that we see that come up on TV, on CNN, or your local news, because of that, that's why we have these narratives in our minds. And so the dominant incorrect story that's continually perpetuated when it comes to black males is that they don't graduate from high school, that most of them go to prison, and that they don't attend college. And so because of that, we have kind of ideas about the way that we conduct ourselves. And so that's what we want to have you begin to think about addressing, not only for yourself, but for future teachers as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the nature of power when we're talking about this. So the dominant culture of power maintains its power by 1, remaining unexamined, and 2, exploiting the powerless. When we think about these areas, we look at race, sexual orientation, and gender. So our powerless seems to be those minority, students of color. We have African American, Latino, Asian American as just examples for our sexual orientation, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and in gender, women. But those that are in power seem to be, for race, white, sexual orientation, heterosexual, and for gender, men. If we don't really examine, this is the untold story, so we don't know too much of the story there. So they remain in power. So that's that nature when you look across each area, that we want to make sure that we help our students, our future teachers understand that we have to go beyond looking at and look at each area and make sure that we are working to make sure that we are addressing all of their needs. Okay?
So with this information, like you stated, you were happy that you got the answers wrong, which is, I think many of us would feel that way. But as a word of caution, we don't want to forget that these statistics are still present. While these data suggest African American males are performing perhaps better than what we had originally thought, they still lead in the number and percentage of racial and ethnic minority subgroups that are incarcerated. They lead in the number and percentage of racial and ethnic groups who are suspended from school. They lead in the number and percentage of racial and ethnic groups who are identified as exceptional children in K-12 schools. And they lead in number and percentage of racial and ethnic groups who underperform on standardized tests, particularly in reading and mathematics. And then finally, they lead in number and percentage of these groups who are unemployed in the United States. So we do have positive statistics, but we also understand that we still have to address these areas as well.
Okay, and what we want to do, we want to share with you some of the things that we do at North Carolina A&T to help our students have different experiences within their program. So we start out by talking about what we've done in the past. And it was up until
These are all students in your teacher candidate
Yes, in our, yes, teacher candidate, yes, in our teacher candidate program. So we have done summer experiences. This past 2016 was the last summer that we've done this. We've moved on to the Dominican Republic and other areas. But the students travel to Jamaica for 4 to 5 weeks. They complete a service learning project, which is implementing intense and in-depth literacy and mathematical related instructional experiences, and in collaboration with one of the schools there, the teacher colleges there, Shortwood College, and one of their public schools, Shortwood Practicing Infant, Primary, and Junior High School. So what we would like to share with you now is some voices, well, one particular voice of a student that actually went. She went for 2 summers, and she now teaches in Moore County, North Carolina, and she wanted to share a little bit with you about her experience and how that has helped her in her teaching.
Definitely understand different cultures, but the school here in North Carolina in general is becoming more diverse. And so jumping into a whole nother culture, being able to talk to students that come from different backgrounds was a good thing and a good learning experience that I feel like prepared me to become a teacher in America as it grows more diverse. Lots of different ways, learning some modifications based on different students' abilities. Because the program was designed for students who struggle a little bit, they themselves have to be pulled out of class, so we had to develop modifications within those small groups. Learning how to be creative in developing those different types of lesson plans. With the lack of technology in Jamaica, we had to be very creative in what we did with our lesson plans. And that has helped me a lot in becoming a teacher here in America with my own lesson plans. Well, growing up here, I kind of already knew how it was here, and just being able to connect with the students on that level and understanding what their thoughts are, and going into the results and what those some things their parents have to deal with. And I think that has allowed me to connect with students here in the rural community. A&T, being an education major, or history education major, was a great experience. Every year that I was at A&T, in some form or fashion, I've got to go into a classroom. So I knew ahead of time as a person if I definitely wanted to be a teacher or not. And then as I've grown and was able to do student teaching, it was just comfortable. I had to learn how to do lesson plans as a student teacher. But A&T very well much so prepared me for that opportunity. Also, coming from a rural community and then going to A&T, which was more city-like, especially for me here, that was a culture shock. So I feel like that I'm more well-rounded, where I can grown in the country, grown in the city, and I'm able to handle that. And A&T definitely prepared me for that. Teacher, I have a ball every day. Sometimes I literally look at the clock and it's like 5 times over, you know. Some days it's different, but I would love teaching absolutely. I can't see myself doing nothing else but being in some classroom in some form or fashion. I love being around kids, especially kids this age, high school kids. Because we're the last ones to stand around and prepare them for life, and I feel like they may remember us, and I just like to leave a lasting impact on students.
Okay, so Jasmine was able to share some things, and she's originally from Moore County. And even with our teacher residency program that we have right now, we're tending to find that our participants, we wanted to make sure we maybe had some that were coming from different areas, but most of them want to go back home. I think we do have 2 college students that aren't originally from a rural area, but we wanted to make sure, like Jasmine, she wanted to go back home, so she was fine. When she came to what she called the city, Greensboro, if you want to call Greensboro a city, it was a culture shock for her because there is more to do. And then we turn around and we have her to go to Jamaica, And she realizes that it's not as much technology here. We have different situations. Parent communications are different. So she really had to change gears and really make sure that, okay, with all of those experiences, what can I do to take that back to Moore County? And it was interesting to actually visit in the school. Dr. Smith and I have enjoyed going to visit different schools in those counties, but it makes you wonder, if she had not had those experiences, would she really sit back and think about some of the things that her students are going through? So then that was our past, okay? So presently, we are doing some things. Do you want to do that, Dr.
Yes.
Smith?
So currently, and we've done this for several years, it's continuing. Our students just got back from the Rural Urban Exchange, and in this experience, it is within the state, and we have our students at North Carolina A&T. They collaborate with a rural four-year university, and their students come with us for a week, and then the following week, our students go and spend a week with them, so that they can see the differences not only in the university culture, but also the differences in those communities. With the Rural Urban Exchange, candidates interact with other pre-service education candidates, they interact with their faculty members, and they're diverse in terms of race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status across the two placements. We have a video as well from one of these participants.
I was grateful for the opportunity because I had never been to a rural community before, but it was different for me because the university that we went to had just come off of a really big racial issue, and so we went a week after everything kind of had calmed down, and I could feel that there was still a little bit of tension even between the girls that came and did the exchange with us. In one particular situation, when they came here, we welcomed them with open arms. They were included in a lot of things that we did, but when we went to their university, they didn't really have much regard for us. And so with that experience, it taught me that people don't have an understanding of what it means to interact with different people. And being in different environments, you can tell when you're where you are used to be. There's a feeling of being comfortable and empowered, where you can be who you truly are. And when you're put in other situations, you kind of have to assimilate with what they're doing. But for me, that was really important because it taught me that I can't just limit myself to what I know. I have to branch out and appreciate the different people that are around me or could potentially be around me. The biggest thing that I've been taught at A&T is how to be a culturally responsive teacher, and that experience impacted my thoughts on that because being culturally responsive isn't just appreciating my culture, but appreciating other people's and other cultures as well. And seeing that there was kind of a missing piece with that at the university that we attended, that's more empowering for me to know that I've been given the tools to do just that when I get my own classroom. Because when I moved to Houston, Texas in August, I'll have to really use what I've learned here. I'll have a classroom of all Hispanic students. I'll be working at a 99% Hispanic institution, and that's going to be different for me. But that's something that I'm welcoming. It's a challenge, and it's something that I really will appreciate because I know that what I've gotten at A&T has prepared me to work with all types of students from all different backgrounds and cultures. So definitely going back to saying that it's important for culturally responsive teaching to not just be limited to what I know about my race or what I know about the race that's similar to mine or the type of group that's similar to mine, but showing my students that it's okay to appreciate other people. Being culturally responsive isn't doing cute activities and handouts and things like that, but it's really diving deep into what culture is and appreciating all of that. Because when you have an understanding of the students that are in your class, then that's building a relationship and they're more receptive to learning from you and cooperating and doing different things that will help them grow academically, socially, and in other areas as well.
And similar to Jasmine, this student was able to be put into an experience where maybe there were some challenges presented to her, but she was able to see past those challenges and see how she could take what she had learned and put that into her own classroom to make her students feel respected and appreciated as she moves forward into her future teaching career. So, looking at the future, we wanted to look at these previous experiences, what we do and what we have done in the past, and really see how we could impact the future with our programs. And this just gives a little bit of information on why we chose the teacher residency model. First, demographics of the public school and teaching workforce. In current situations, there are not a lot of teachers of color. So students go into a school, and while the public schools are more racially, linguistically, and ethnically diverse than ever, their teachers still are most often white females. Many of the teachers are not majoring and minoring in the disciplines that they teach, especially when you look at STEM and science and mathematic related fields. There's increasing statewide teacher turnover rates across the board. Often those turnover rates are in the most impoverished school, and this isn't a new phenomenon. It's been across the board for the last 30 years or so. And lack of teacher retention in public schools, particularly those high-need urban and rural areas. And students in hard-to-staff schools are frequently taught by the least experienced, least effective teachers. So with our current program moving forward, we really want to make sure that we're considering those schools that might be hard to staff and what people are interested in going into those schools. Like Dr. Irwin mentioned, the people that are from those areas often want to go home and give back. So looking at people that come from the area as a possibility. Anything else y'all would like to add?
Not now.
Okay.
We can go ahead.
So we have a voice. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just curious, pardon me if you already said this, but the rural colleges in the state that you are partnering with, could you just toss out some names?
We would prefer not to toss out names of the universities just because we don't want to put make anything.
And understand that was the perspective of one student.
Yes.
Okay? And it's a valuable experience that we have with those, whether it's, the western part of North Carolina, the eastern part of North Carolina. It is a valuable experience. And the experience that she had is not what every person experienced. She said it was just right after there had been some racial tension, okay? That doesn't happen each year. When they come down, we have a good time. This year, we actually had one young man, Brandon. He was just, oh my goodness, because there were all females coming. He was like, Dr. Irwin, I'm going to find my future wife right here. I said, Brandon, that's not why we are sending you there. He was gung-ho to go. And the group that went this year really had a good experience. Most of the time, they have the good experience, but we want to make sure that they understand when you move out of Greensboro, there are different cultures, there are different ways that people think, and that's okay. It's okay because, as she said, you feel empowered in your own area where you're comfortable. So yes, sometimes we do throw them in uncomfortable situations so that we can see, okay, what are you going to do? What would you recommend? How are you going to handle this? And we have to, with our residency program, we are, we're in Greensboro. One of our school districts is approximately an hour and 15 minutes away, the other one about 45 minutes away. So we're having to make sure that we branch out. And even for a teacher ed program, we need to branch out. We just can't be right there in the Greensboro area. We can't be right there in Winston-Salem Forsyth. We have to branch out. And yes, we want to make sure that we prepare those people that want to go back home, but we also want to make sure that you'll see our next participant. We want to make sure that we provide some of the diversity that our school districts are saying that they need. When we talk to superintendents, they're coming to us. We need teachers of color. We need males. So we're having to make sure that we branch out, that we go farther, and we try to make sure that we have things in place so that our students that may not have transportation, that we can make sure that we're giving them what they need, because we've got to branch out farther than our own back door. Okay, so we had some information in there, identifying information. Our dean was like, you know, we have a good relationship and we want to keep that, because there's nothing wrong with having that communication. Everything is not going to come up smelling like roses, so, and we don't want it to, because that's not real life. So we do have situations that come up, but the major thing and the important thing that happens is that we're able to sit down with both institutions, with students, and let's talk about this and let's work this out and see what would be the next steps. Okay, all right.
Okay, so we'll move on to the voice from our future.
I think coming from being a biology major and going through all those classes in college, it gave me all the content knowledge that I needed to teach the subject. The thing that I really hope to get from the program is better teaching styles, or better understanding of how to differentiate students and how to better present the information to them. I know the information, but what's the best way to present that to the students? So again, hoping to better relate to the kids and how to apply everything that I learn in my classes and everything that I'll be learning going through the program into how can I help with them better. Not only would I be helping myself and learning more from me going through the program, but I want to get the kids to me. So it's a good program. I think realizing that for some of these kids, and I didn't realize this until I became a teacher, that for some of them it's a miracle that they even make it to school every day because of things that go on at home and things that we don't even know about. So hopefully helping me figure out how to better relate to them and to make them think that this is important, even though they have other things going on that may seem a lot more important in their life. I think the most exciting thing is not only to be officially certified as a teacher, and be there completely, because I feel like I'm living it every day, but I know it's not there on paper. So to be there on paper, and then to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make sure the kids are learning the best they can be, and how that I present the information in a good way, and to learn that from other people who know a lot more than I do would be, that's really exciting.
All right, so now that we've shared some of the things that we're doing, our exchange program with Jamaica, the rural urban exchange, and then now our rural residency program, we want to talk about what cultural competence is. So basically, when we're looking at how we began the conversation about implicit bias, is basically having awareness of your own cultural identity and the views about differences and an ability to interrelate with other people. So first, of course, like I said in the beginning, addressing your own understanding and then being able to appreciate other people is what the goal of cultural competence is. So basically, we want to increase our cultural competence IQ, so to speak. So now we want to have a bit of a conversation. We want you to think, we'll take maybe about 5 minutes for you to, on your yellow sheet, we want you to write down a couple of things. So thinking about the work that you do, the students that you work with, What are some ways that, how are you basically developing cultural competence across geographic regions? And remember, we talked about different areas. We talked about race, we talked about sexuality and gender, but we also talked about rural, urban. That's another area that we sometimes don't think about. What are you doing? If you're not doing as much as you would like to do, what can you do? And then what can you do collaboratively with other schools? So we're going to take about 5 minutes for you to think and write, and then we'll have some time for us to share. All right. It looks like everyone is just about finished writing. So we want to take the last few minutes for you all to just kind of share out some of the ideas that you came up with, so we can facilitate the conversation. So if anyone's willing to speak, I'll just pass the mic around, and you can share some of the things that you thought about while we were presenting, some of the things that you're doing that you think are really innovative, or ideas that you've had in the back of your mind for years, and now it's like, okay, I want to get this started. So who wants to begin? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Swan Jackson from the Newark Montclair Urban Teacher Residency in New Jersey. Our goal is preparing teachers for urban environments. So for Newark, they come in as graduate students, and they spend the first 4 months of the program in a summer internship where they're working in the Newark schools and they're engaged in coursework. Then the next year of the program, they are in the classroom 4 days a week, working with mentor teachers and attending coursework 1 day. And so they're there for the entire school year. They start the school year in September, they finish in June, they'll graduate then, and then they get jobs as teachers in Newark, preferably. And they spend 3 years in induction. So they engage in monthly cohort meetings. We bring them in quarterly for PD. We have induction coaches that go out to the schools to see them twice a week for the entire school year, and that happens for 3 years. But they also, so in addition to immersing them in the context of Newark with those kids, we also provide an Undoing Racism workshop and border crossers while they're students with us, so that we start to talk about cultural competence, implicit biases, so that they can understand themselves and their role that they play in the classroom with those kids. But I think the biggest part of it is immersing them in Newark. These are the families that you're going to be working with, and giving them that experience with a mentor to engage with them over the course of the year.
Hi, my name is Tim Heiss. I work for TNTP. We're starting a similar program in San Francisco through a seed grant. I actually have more of a question, because we've built a strand around access and equity through the content, and built in time for reflection and conversation, and also revised all the other content to reflect a more culturally relevant lens through all the work that we do. I'm wondering, though, how successful you've been at assessing the students' cultural competence, and whether or not they've met your bar for that before they're released out into the classroom. How do you assess them, and do you feel like you're accurately able to do so in the pre-service setting?
Go ahead.
I know with each of these, with each of our experiences, there is an evaluation piece. It would be helpful, I think, with the individual programs. I feel that we can assess the students and see where they are as far as their cultural competence and awareness. I would like to see more of a connection between the non-participators and those that have participated in this program. So possibly in addition to a dispositions instrument or something to really connect the ones that were not participating, to really see that true connection, I think would be something that we could all learn from in that process. So.
Just to follow up, are you have certain measures you're using, or?
Sorry.
I was gonna say, it's built within, so we don't have a separate cultural competence assessment. That question, you saying that brings to mind, is there something out there? I don't know if there is, but that would be great to develop it, to see if we can specifically get at that. We do assess their dispositions, so we're able to assess what their dispositions are. So it's embedded within there, but not specifically. So that's something definitely that we should definitely work on.
Okay, and then
Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen Benson. I'm Associate Dean for Partnerships at Georgia State University and Principal Investigator for a TQP grant. I want to step back for a minute because we're doing a lot to immerse our residents into spaces in their schools and in the university where they have an opportunity to really share information around culturally relevant teaching and other practices. But our issue has been, how do we work with our faculty in terms of implicit bias? Because when we hold faculty forums or workshops, we're preaching to the choir. The people who are really interested show up, but the people who really need to be there don't. And so we are working to try to figure out, and there might be experts in this audience, one of the reasons why I came to this session, how do you pull a training together to work with faculty? And by the way, we're a minority serving university, but our faculty does not reflect our student population. So, that's one of the issues. But how do you pull together a training session over a semester perhaps, and what would be the service delivery model for that you might think of, and who are the experts out there? Because sometimes people outside of your university are a lot more respected than the talent you have inside, and there's a more willingness to learn and then take that and actually put it into use. So.
thank you.
So we have anyone that would like to share?
Yeah, so actually I was going to respond to both. So responding to both of those comments. So I work at Arizona State University on an ITGLL's TQP grant, so another subset of a marginalized population. And we developed a Q survey, so knowledge, understanding, and self-efficacy to help measure some of the dispositions in our faculty as well as our students. So we use that as a pre and a post assessment to determine how their dispositions, their understandings, and their applications of what we're providing, the innovations we're providing, are impacting not only their coursework and their field experience, but also those student dispositions. And then secondly, in terms of pulling together people for training, we have a group as part of our project called a program enhancement team that was initially meant to be just for faculty to change the culture. It's charged with changing the culture, but we've expanded that to include district representatives, teacher candidates, and also teacher graduates, so that we get voices from all elements of how to work with a marginalized population. And what we've done within that is we've developed a tool, innovation configuration maps, which is, another way to assess the behaviors of what's happening in the field. But it really wasn't, the purpose of it isn't to come away with the tool. Really the driving force behind it is the conversations across the spectrum of roles that we're impacting that are happening during this process, so that we're all having the same understanding of what it is the expectations are and what the change is meant to look like in the field, and then the impact, how is it impacting those students? How is it having a positive impact, or does that impact need to be modified in some way? So, and that is a process that we've done over multiple semesters, and then we keep building on that as we go. And it's been really valuable. And then we actually take, within that process, we're out in the field gathering data that then informs those next steps. So it's a very iterative cycle of data collection, conversation, application. Collection, conversation, application. So we're doing it. We just wrapped up our sequence of meetings last week, and then we're going to pull everything from those experiences this past semester into the next semester. And we've invited everyone that took part in that process this year to be one and bring one. So expanding those people into a larger group and then a larger group. So it just goes on and on. So anyway. So it's exciting to hear what everybody's doing.
Well, I was just gonna, I'm Jennifer O'Malley. I'm from Illinois State University, but I work in Chicago on a TQP grant that we've had for about 12 years. And so our struggle, because I'm actually was a former teacher in Chicago, so many of the people in our office are kind of sort of, I mean, not intentionally, but sort of a marginalized group from the university, which is in the middle of the state. And so what I've watched the university do over the last couple of years, which I find really productive, even though I think, we have a long way to go. And it's part of kind of thinking about what we're doing. We also have a mission besides working with the students that come to us at Illinois State University, which are mostly suburban and rural students that are interested in teaching in CPS, but we also have a mission to recruit more because our students want to go home. So then why not recruit students that think Chicago is home? But a lot of issues of support at the university, cultural issues. And so one of the things that's been happening on our campus the last 2 years is our president has really asked all the people in the community through focus groups to talk about how it feels to be an underrepresented faculty member and student on campus. And out of that came a big conference last fall, which was really a difficult experience in a way because everyone, underrepresented students and faculty, shared their experience on campus. And it was very hard to hear, I think, for a lot of people on campus. But what I've really appreciated is there's an openness to listening to that. And then one of the points that I found is some of our education meetings that they have. Instead of having a meeting, like even that conference, right? You look around the room and it's mostly the choir. But moving those discussions into mandatory faculty monthly meetings, and at least in our education school, which I've been a part of, and then next year they're opening the voice and trying to get the community groups that our Chicago office works with and students to be part of those meetings, because again, we can all talk about what we think our students need to know, but if we're not listening to the students that are getting our teachers, we're missing a piece. But I think it's difficult work, and what I've found in the past 15 years of working and my own journey when I was teaching in CPS is a lot of it is not just learning about your students' families, but really exploring your own identity and coming to terms with your biases and figuring out how you're going to engage. And so we've moved our program that we have for our students coming to us in Chicago to that. I think we used to do more of a, not appreciation, but showing them the assets of our families and our students and our communities, but we really have gone more to a work on themselves, because then it's an ongoing process. And when they leave us, even after induction and mentoring, they got to continue. I mean, I continue on that journey even, 20 years into education. It's still a journey of unpacking what I'm thinking when I'm interacting with a group, or like our exercise today, what I think when I see stats and what I get wrong still. So those are some of the things, but I really think moving it into the mandatory spaces, but that takes, I credit our president of the university saying, like, we have got to change the culture of the university. So, but it's a journey.
So my name is Dr. Lewis Edwards. I work for the U.S. Department of Education, and I certainly have to tell you all that it is good to know that you all are doing this type of work, because I do have a teacher and a principal background experience, and I was kind of thrown, trial by error. I was kind of thrown in the fire back in my teaching days, especially when you talk about the rural area. My first teaching job was in Munford, Alabama, and it was kind of a shocker to me to have conferences with a 32-year-old granddad or a 54-year-old great-granddad and 14-year-olds were, expecting mothers and things like that. So that was really a shocker to me. But to kind of prepare the students early for that type of environment, it's just good to know, because I didn't have that when I was coming through as a student teacher. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Hi, I'm Tammy Sober. I'm with Virginia Commonwealth University, and we have a residency program, an urban residency program, a TQP grant. We're probably in we just admitted our 7th cohort. So some of the things have already been said, but one of the things that you were talking about in terms of embedding or trying to bring people on board. So we do have a president that's really supportive. VCU is trying to pride themselves on being diverse. And so we've got a lot of things already working, but down to the micro level in terms of trying to work on it within the teaching and learning department, we are all coming together in department meetings, sharing our syllabi on Google Drive. And then we're looking at that for common language. I mean, so that, like, do we all know what a deficit model is? Are we all talking about that in our classes? How can you talk about it in this class so that in math methods they hear it, and they don't just hear it in the social justice class? That's the one I teach, and so it's like, okay, we don't want it to be this, oh, you get the social justice and it's over here. So we're developing common vocabulary and just working on sharing our syllabi about that. So, and then this was a really cool book. If you guys haven't heard of it, it's only been out maybe 2 years or so, but Teacher College Press, and it's Is Everyone Equal? And so it has, even though I use it for the class, it's the kind of things that maybe if you have faculty who aren't, because it has like tools and, it's the stuff like when you get resistance, what are there? So it's very practical, applied toolbox kind of thing. And then I wanted to see whether or not whether your KUD, whether that's something that's publicly available and like that you developed, because it'd be interested for us to get that, because that's what we've got. One of our standards is on multicultural diversity, and we want to assess that, and I'm looking for assessment tools.
It was developed by one of our instructional coaches during her dissertation, so it is not publicly available yet, but I'll ask her if that's something we can share out. Yeah, thank you. Definitely agree.
Okay.
Would anyone, we've wrapped up our presentation time. Are there any other questions or comments that you all have?
I have a question. One of the things that our residency struggles with a little bit is recruitment. So thinking about, I'm curious to hear how students find out about your program, how you get them interested. If they're already interested in education, I think that's one thing, but if you're pulling them from other disciplines, I'd be curious to hear how that's happening at A&T.
So what we did, and we're kind of the new kids on the block, this is our first TQP grant. We actually went over to our College of Arts and Sciences, and you have the banners and different things that you have. It's great to have Dr. Petty, because you have faculty in there. So it's almost like using a little bit of your capital going in to say, have you ever thought about this? Our dean, Dr. Graham, is very good at going in and saying, okay, let's talk about this. So it was a lot of interest meetings. We had an actual website that we developed. We sent out the email blast about it, but also we sent out short little videotapes with the web page that we developed. So we had several that were actually interested. We were lucky. In our grant, we only put to work with 10 people in a cohort. We had over 40 to apply. So it went through a very rigorous process to see, the best of the best. And out of that, we've got 3 of our undergraduate students that would want to, that are in different areas. They weren't in the STEM area, I don't think. What we're finding now, and I would like to hear any of your suggestions, recommendations, we are looking for STEM educators. Most of our group has chosen elementary. And I happen to be the elementary coordinator, so I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. That's a good thing for my program, but we were really looking for the STEM. We had one young lady, I think, was it Kayla? She decided to.
So I can kind of speak on the kind of the science piece. My background is a bachelor's in biology, master's in biology education, and a PhD in teacher ed. And the way that it's structured at A&T is I work in the biology department. I'm the teacher ed coordinator, but I'm still in the content, and I teach content, a few content courses along with education courses. So I'm there with the students that are majoring in biology. So we did have some success. We have a NOIS grant where we brought in 3 students last year who are biology majors, really strong, dynamic young ladies who have committed to that 4 years of teaching after they graduate, but we have the same issues that everyone's finding. If you're a really strong biology major, your goal is not to be in the classroom. We have one young lady who is in the program. She was just accepted into a, I believe it's a physical therapy 1-week program this summer. So she already has her sights set on her next step. The young lady she was referring to, Kayla, she's about to graduate. She wants to go to medical school. So she was looking at teaching as maybe a segue, but that's not her end goal. So we are finding and if anybody has an answer to that one, that is the $5 million question, is how to get them attracted, because that's not their end goal. And we know we could stay here all day and talk about the reasons why. Until teachers are paid and respected, we're going to continue to find that, especially in STEM, that's not the area that they want to go in. But more exposure, like talking about it more, like me talking with my students. I just had a conversation the other day with a young lady talking about my path, and she was like, oh, educational research. She saw my Black feminist thought and narrative inquiry folders from my dissertation. She's like, what's that about? And so I was like, oh, I need to talk about it every year. Like I did one talk after I finished my dissertation, but there were maybe 30 students there, but every year saying, you know what, this is what you can do with a science degree, and education is wonderful. You can, so we're having the same issues. But we did also do radio. We had a great amount of success with candidate applicants when it came to this real residency program, better than we thought we would.
It was overwhelming.
It was overwhelming, but radio was one of the young ladies that came in. She was listening to the radio. She heard our advertising was like the voice of God, because she was like, this is what I want to do. So it was the radio. That was one of the surprising ones that we found. It was really a good way to connect. Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay. Any other questions?
And I think another thing that helped us, we really try to go out to the districts and form those partnerships. Again, it goes back to that social capital. Dr. Smith is actually from Randolph County, and we were able to, when you know the superintendent and you can call and say, this is, and they pick up the phone, you're like, oh my goodness, but they're excited about it because they want to make sure. So it's a lot of time, we spent a lot of time on the road going between Randolph and Stokes County and just meeting them wherever they needed to be. Stokes County, the winding roads, but they were like, can you make it? Do you want us to come to us? No, we'll come to you. We never tell them that they have to come to us. We'll come to you. So I think with this cohort, we got more based on the radio announcements, those people that, people are, we get nervous. We hate that people are losing jobs. And then they say, well, if I can't do this, then I'll teach. That scares me. But we were able to make sure that we really went through this rigorous process so that we could really find those people that really wanted to. So that is our goal, to try to make sure. And with Katie, what was good about it, the school systems, Katie that you saw, she's lateral entry. And they were like, oh my goodness, we would love just to have her to be right here in the cohort. So it's listening to those school systems. What do you need? What can we do? It's that give and take. A lot of times I think we go in, okay, can you host our students? But when we go in and say, okay, what do you want from us? And when we get beyond, the materialistic things that they need with technology, it starts to build that relationship. So I think that helped us a lot this year. We've got people already saying, okay, so we have to wait. Well, yes, but listen, and we'll start another cohort, but it is hard. We try to go over to the other side of campus, and it helps to have colleagues that we work with really well that are still in that content that we can say, we have this going on. Will you partner with us? So it was great to have Dr. Petty to do it, but yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.